about what's going on with disproportionate amounts of so-called African Americans getting sick and dying with the virus, where they're not as proportionately going to the hospital to other demographics. And the president said, well, we have noticed, we have heard something about this, and I don't like it, and we're going to do something about it. It was very vague, and it's kind of the answer you would expect any president to give in that circumstance in a press briefing. But I got suspicious because I said, wait a minute, the narrative has now become about us. Why is the narrative about us when there was a study by a Chinese virologist in Wuhan when this first started that was saying that, well, there's a receptor, an RNA receptor, that the virus latches onto in your lungs that starts the fibrosis that kills people. And they said that the virus needs that receptor in order to take hold in the lungs and actually get somebody sick. And they said there's lower amounts of this receptor naturally in so-called African Americans and people of European descent, but it's higher naturally genetically in people of Asian descent. And I've heard the president and people in the government mention about how Asian Americans are being treated and how they want to put a stop to that as well. But I took note when the subject turned to Negroes and so-called African Americans, because there's something to that, and I don't know what just yet, but there's something going on. Anytime the government comes in saying they're trying to help us, you need to be skeptical. Not saying you don't trust them at all, but you need to be skeptical because there's maybe something else going on that we're not being told. And so now you're starting to see the narrative turn to, I'm going to be quick about this, I know I'm long-winded, but you start to see the narrative change to hygiene, to infrastructure. So while they're touting all these hospitals are being built to take care of patients, what are they now turning attention to as well? The hoods, the projects, the low-income areas where they assume all of us are. So what do you think is going to happen when they have these large areas of these large urban areas, especially, where there are a lot of people in a small amount of space? They're demographically, like I said, more likely to die from this, and they don't have a standard of living that's like everybody else's.
I mean, look at the main...
You got abandoned buildings and stuff. I'm sorry, go ahead, bro.
And like you were saying, look at the main catalyst to this virus. Numbers. Aren't in the urban cities we overpopulated and stacked on top of each other?
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
I mean, when we was talking this morning, to me, because of the stories and history that we done been through, it just brings me back up about the smallpox epidemic with our ancestors.
Yeah, when they've talked about viruses in the past, they've always, okay, let me not use the word always, just from what I read, it's attached to cramped environments.
Mm-hmm. And like
tight spaces.
Yep. Hygiene, the hygiene, the conditions of the community. What is the environment of the community? Think about it. Most of our hoods, we already know it was what? Environmental racism. Because the majority of our hoods are built on top of dumps, built around plants, electrical plants, things that were already deemed unhealthy. Now add this COVID-19 on top of it. What is the ending results and effect on our communities moving forward? I mean, just look at the fights on either why we gather here every rising to do what we do, to volunteer our time, because the conditions and the broken things in our community way before COVID-19 exist. The conditions of water, the conditions of a healthy living space and environment, access to clean food. So if people was unhealthy, overly stressed, putting poor living conditions before all this, again, what is the ending result on our communities moving forward?
And this has been to that very point. This has been a means of getting our society to accept things it wouldn't normally accept. Because you got a segment of us at the beginning to say, wait a minute, we're from here. We've always been here, and as such, this is our place. We need to start respecting it. And so we finally get to a point where we begin to start trying to take back our communities, and now this happens. I'm not saying that this happened because of that. I'm saying that this is the thing that gets in the way. This is where we are now. And as such, we're now being told not only to stay indoors, stay home. You know, you hear that uttered at least 25,000 times a day now. Wash your hands, stay home. But even when we go back to life outside of staying at home, you have people, very large donators to the World Health Organization, and people in federal government, among others, who are saying that, well, maybe we don't stop social distancing. Maybe we don't stop, mass gatherings. Well, maybe we stop mass gatherings rather until there is a global vaccine, until we have the means to vaccinate everybody. So you got to not only get the vaccine, but you'll also, and this has been suggested by some of these people, they've done interviews and said this, not only will you have to get the vaccine, but you would have to have some proof that you've gotten it. You're talking about a virus that they told us about 2 months ago it was no use in having a vaccine because people who were getting infected and recovering were getting reinfected within a few days or a month. So again, conflicting information, and it's all set up for us to agree to choose to not only choose to demand that we all get vaccinated, regardless of what your opinion on vaccinations is. I'm not even going to go there with that, but it's designed for us to demand that everybody get vaccinated. And not only that we get vaccinated, but that we have some kind of identification. That's the point that I'm getting at. It's not even the vaccination, but you haven't had.
Isn't that another type of separation?
To prove it.
Yeah, but the vaccination is the vaccination is the vehicle that allows the identification. And I'm glad Dr. Indio mentioned that, because before all this COVID-19, they were talking about adopting something from China, social proofing. Wouldn't proof that you was vaccinated be a form of social proofing? It's just a thought.
Exactly.
You know, you just made me think about. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Now I was going to say, and that being part of what was actually already fully instituted in that part of central China that Wuhan province is in, or the city rather is in, the social credit score. So you have a social credit score that looks at what you say about the government, what you are interested in, what type of websites you go to, what places you go to, and then not only takes that information and holds it and gives the government, the Chinese government, that it also determines whether or not you can take an international flight. It determines whether or not you can take certain bus routes and train lines. People over there in that part of the world actually have an identifier that's either red, yellow, or green that determines what type of risk you are to travel, to go in certain places, to go into mass events. And that was what I was talking about as far as like them saying that, mass congregation of people will be pretty much banned unless you can prove that you have some inoculation or some immunity. This is stuff that's being deliberated and debated right now as everybody sits home and watches Netflix and Disney Plus. This is why we keep telling people to pay attention. Pay attention. Don't sit there and just listen to celebrities tell you to stay home and distract you with nonsense. Pay attention to what the government is doing. Pay attention to what these so-called physicians, and some of them aren't even physicians, by the way. Pay attention to what they're talking about, what they're suggesting needs to happen. Do you know the previous Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown? I think it was Gordon Brown. Suggested that we have, maybe we should have a temporary one world government so that we can handle this. It's going to be temporary, y'all. Don't worry about it. It's just, we'll just have it for a while, and then we'll relinquish that control back to the
mission that we need to control the government. Yep, for everybody's sake.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll trust us. We'll give it up as soon as this whole thing is done. Trust us. This is what's going on, y'all.
Trust us.
And yeah,
trust me. You can't trust us.
And you really can. And like what Brother Bones was saying a little earlier. We've been on a cycle, especially in this country and in the Americas in general. We've been on a cycle of integration and segregation. And what you're seeing, even though, like you said, it's not based in race. It's not based in your empirical color or your appearance. It's based in whether or not you've been inoculated. Oh, and trust me, this isn't just you get this vaccine once and you're done. No, this is going to need boosters, like the flu does, and probably even more often. Where they suggest you go get a flu shot once a year during flu season. This is going to be multiple times a year because the antibodies that are built up to this thing, part of the reason why people are getting reinfected, is that they only last for about a month to 2 months. So if you get inoculated and you come into contact with the virus 6 months from then, you probably are going to get reinfected, like you never had an immunity to it to begin with. Hence why they were saying there was no point in the virus at first. But the counter to that will be, well, we'll just inoculate people more often. And so you have to continue to maintain a vaccination to make sure your identification is green so you can move about the country and congregate in large groups, go to movie theaters and such. Sorry.
And what's the one thing you learn about business? When it comes down to business, they make the money in the maintenance of the service.
Facts. It ain't the cure, y'all. It's the treatment. Haven't we been saying that?
Yep. I mean, isn't the world isolated now? Only particular people can move around.
Travel. Close to 5 billion people, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Because you got two of the most populous countries in the world, India and China, are pretty much on lockdown. State mandated lockdown, no less. So you're talking at least 3 to 4, maybe even 5 billion people at this point. Maybe more than that. Who knows?
You just made me think about it. My son and daughter go to 2 different colleges, right? My daughter called me. She got into the school, got enrolled, scholarships, all that great stuff, right? She called me maybe about 2 weeks after, and she was like, "Mom, please don't get upset." And I was like, "Wait, why?" She's like, "Just don't get upset. I had to do it." And I was like, "Well, what's going on?" She had to get shots. Now, before enrolling her and all that, there was no notice or anything sent out saying that she had to get shots. The shots that they were saying she had to get or she couldn't go to that school were shots for things that I can't remember the last time I've heard about somebody catching the mumps. I can't remember the last time I heard somebody catching malaria or anything. I couldn't remember. And she was like, well, I had to get the shot. She said, or else they wouldn't have let me stay on campus. And I was like, well, I don't understand. She said they wouldn't have let me come, not even if I don't stay on campus, go to school. She said, I know how you feel about shots. And I was like, well, when did this become a requirement? Because I don't remember having to get shots when I went to college, and I don't know anybody else. She said, that's the requirement now. So she sent me what they gave her shots for. I, started reading on it. And then I started reading on what's required now for colleges. Now, I don't know if this is in every state, but I do know it's being implemented in a lot of states where in order to go to college, even attend these classes, even if you're not in the dorms, even to attend these classes, it is a requirement. But it's mainly for what's considered the public colleges. You have to get these shots. It just made me think about it. And it was just like, oh, okay.
Sound like social proofing to me.
Now, my son's school is considered a private school. It's considered a private Christian college, and they don't require that at all.
I was going to say there would be a difference between the public and private ones at this point. So, yeah, that in and of itself should be proof that I mean, we've already known in compulsory education, the idea is to kind of funnel people into certain groups.
Right.
And this appears to be even more proof of that.
What they call it, the have and have nots.
Yeah. I mean, even down to how they treated evacuating the schools. My son's college treated the whole situation different. My daughter's college, it was just like, nope, you guys have to get off campus, this and this and that. My son's college was like, look, we're doing this our way. We still have classes, for my daughter's school, they kicked everybody off campus. For my son's school, for like the foreign exchange students, no, y'all good. Y'all good. We not falling into all that. Okay, that's just me sharing.
That's like 2 days ago here. The mayor did a news report thanking everyday citizens for calling in and reporting people that they suspected that wasn't following the quarantine ban. I had to double take.
Wait,
and
what?
Realize yeah. People who are going to the businesses and stuff and still open and getting services, if they see that the employees are not maintaining 6 feet and all this blase squaze, to report them, and people have been calling in. And that's why I say it's funny how this is slowly turning into the have and have nots.
Yeah.
Because it's not like no government entity is doing this. It's people doing this to people. That's like people going to the store, getting the mask and pumping gas, getting the mask, getting mad at other people that don't have a mask. Get back in the vehicle and turn the AC on. Ain't you still breathing the same air we all breathing?
Yeah, okay. So yeah, thank you for bringing that up because, and this is just me thinking. If I'm wrong for thinking like this, so 6 feet away is like the social distance thing, right? So let's say I'm walking up the street towards you, okay? And you're walking up the street towards me, or just even in a business, a store, whatever. When you're walking, don't you breathe in and out? If I walk even 6 feet away, and let's say it's outside and the wind blows, isn't what you breathe out and what I breathe out, isn't it circulating?
Mm-hmm.
If we're in a store together and you breathe out and I breathe out and I breathe in and then you breathe, we doing, isn't that what we breathe in and out circulating?
Yep.
And that's just me thinking. I could be so wrong. That's my common sense. I just.
But Copper Indio mentioned it earlier. If you listen to how they describe this virus now, on how it can live in the air for 3 hours after somebody sneezes, 9 days on solid surfaces, we all infected already.
That sounds like a fungus.
Listen, if you take everything they said word for word, that means the whole population of the planet is already infected.
This is correct.
It can live in the air for 3 hours off of one sneeze. Last I checked, the wind ain't never stopped blowing on the planet all at one time.
You know what? It must be attached to a pollen.
But if it's in the air, how fast can air move in 3 hours? I'm just saying.
I don't know. You can't see air, so I don't know how to track that.
And wouldn't the particles be? You get what I'm saying? I mean,
I don't know how to track that.
How many particles per air would it take to be infected? I'm just saying.
Yeah, really, you sounded so skeptical. I don't know. I can't see air, so I can't tell you that.
I mean, I'm talking to y'all right now. It's not cold enough for me to see my breath, and it's not hot. I mean, I don't know what to do. Let me see if I got some. Matter of fact, I got some flour. I got some wheat flour. I'm gonna throw it up in the air and see what happens. See where the air, so I don't know.
Avatar airbender right now. This is the airbender.
You're gonna need two assistants, Gabrielle. When you breathe, somebody got to run with the tape measure to see how far it goes.
Yeah,
Stop fast and got there.
You need a scientific crew. You better start a nonprofit.
You know what? You know what? I just thought about. I got a window unit in my room. Now, let me stop. No.
If somebody sneezed outside with the window blow it inside, I'm just asking. Because the last I checked, let me stop. Never mind.
Man, look.
Both of y'all come out the window.
If I can smell it, you can taste it. Okay, my bad.
And then everybody going to rage, talking, oh, it's finna get hot. The virus gonna die. Last I checked, cold keeps the viruses down. That's why all hospitals, schools, institutions, correctional facilities are always freezing. Last I checked.
Oh my goodness! Listen, I went into the store. This is about a week ago. When I tell you, it was decent outside. It wasn't extra hot, but they had their AC pumping. This store had their AC pumping so high. Like I had on like a thin little jacket, like a sweat jacket. I was like, the cashiers at the register were shaking. I was like, y'all serious about this? Okay. I need to get out of here. I don't even want to shop no more. I'm good. I'm out.
Yeah, speaking of which, there was another thing that I saw 2 days ago this was on CNN though. This is an interview. I think Don Lemon was interviewing some guy, and it's supposed to be a virologist, and he was talking about how when they dealt with SARS and H1N1 back in the early 2000s, people were hoping that it was going to just be a seasonal thing, that once the weather became hotter, that things would just kind of, would calm down. And they said it didn't happen, that the infection rate was consistent. So the guy was saying, if y'all think this is going to go away for the summer, think again.
Everybody who has ever had a cold during the summer, just remember how miserable that really is.
Man, I have had a cold during the summer. I've had a flu during the summer. You talking about mad, and you just want to inflict that feeling on other people, have people's faces feel compacted like you.
The fastest way to spread a cold in a hot environment.
Yeah.
Man, listen, 5 minutes, everybody in the room sick.
Yeah, I don't want to talk to nobody. I don't want to talk to nobody. Don't call. Don't ask me to get. I don't want.
And it's not like everybody walking around with medically cleared masks. The dust mask from out of Walmart, that's not stopping nothing. maybe some larger particles, but we talking about air. If you breathe
Right.
out of that dust mask and you're not breathing back in that carbon dioxide that you breathe out, air is coming in. Like I said, don't know what it's really about. It's just crazy. I'm like Copper Indio. It's a whole lot of inconsistent stories, and it's coming from top level that is inconsistent.
Right.
Exactly. And we got to remember, y'all, confusion breeds fear. And I'm gonna quote Frank Herbert's novel Dune. There's a little mnemonic device that people use in the story that say fear is the mind killer, the little death that comes to obliterate all of us. We don't act in our interests when we are afraid, which is why they use fear to manipulate us. All those slave narratives that we got when we were studying African American studies and Black history and Pan-African, all of that stuff we kept hearing about was fear. That was designed to make us afraid. It was designed to make any of our ancestors that had to deal with any of this stuff, they were designed to make them afraid. So they would make decisions.
We can go back into that. We got to do it this way. Mm-hmm.
Right. So when they telling you that you're no longer an Indian, that you got to go be a Negro, you go with it because you've either been threatened within an inch of your life to comply, or in some cases people have been intimidated. Why do you think the Klan showed up at so many people's houses on farms in the South to move them out, to either get them to go to Africa or to get them to go into the cities? It was intimidation. And the government and the large corporations, they all keep giving you this. They don't do it the same way the Klan did, but they use fear. When was the last time you watched CNN or MSNBC or Fox News, any of these news outlets, and didn't see a ticker showing, even during commercials, a ticker showing how many deaths there are, and showing it flashing and flipping in real time, so you can see the deaths mounting up. And I will say this, and if anybody requires proof, I can procure it. There are people that are dying of other things, and they're being attributed to this.
Right.
One more time for me, Copper.
Want to say something else, out?
Check.
1 2 1 2.
Peace to the chats. One more time, Copper.
Now, there are deaths that are occurring in hospitals that are not necessarily related to this, but are being attributed to it to make the death toll numbers higher.
That's exactly what I was about to ask.
Yeah, that's
to make the death toll numbers
emergency paramedic worker that showed up on the scene and had a heart attack. He died of a heart attack, but they accredit his death to COVID-19 because after he died of the heart attack, they tested him and he tested positive.
Like his surface skin?
Listen, the report said they tested him after he died and he came back positive. My thing is this, even if he died of a heart attack. How is that COVID-19?
Exactly. Because last I checked, this virus doesn't affect the heart. It affects the lungs and their ability to get oxygen to the heart, sure, but not the heart itself. There are people that have died of diabetes. There are people that have died of Alzheimer's that have now been attributed to this.
Mm-hmm.
For what reason?
Nothing else. Cancer ain't killing nobody. Right. Listen, COVID taking everybody out.
I haven't even heard. This is a new C. The new C word. Ain't no cancer.
Yeah, cancer is canceled.
Exactly. There you go. Just swap it out.
Think about it. COVID is so bad. It's so dangerous, y'all. Remember what they said? They stopped all emergency surgeries.
Oh yeah, yep. This is correct.
Like, hold on.
Yeah, they did.
And I can finally get this transplant that's gonna save my life. I'm not gonna get this transplant, and eventually can lose my life because you're worried about me catching the virus that can take my life. What's wrong with that scenario?
Yeah, one of my wife's
yeah,
friends,
not just
not hit her in the face, and she cannot have surgery yet.
What?
Yeah, she had her dog, I think, accidentally like scratched or bit her somehow, and she needs surgery. She can't do that yet. She has to wait.
Yeah, my mom, she's supposed to. It's crazy. She got hit by a car. Her shoulder or her collarbone broke, dislocated, and they won't do surgery on her. They're just giving her pain pills. Have at it.
Wow. Don't we have an opioid issue in this country?
Yep.
That is going to get worse because of this.
Yep.
Also, I'm not. Some people may not have seen this yet, but there was a story, and there was a video of this as well, of a guy. I want to say this is in Texas. A guy called an ambulance and went into the hospital, and he had a mask on and he was coughing, so people assumed that he had the virus, but he was talking to the physicians because he was kind of being, let's say, unwilling to cooperate. And he was talking about how the medical industry needed to change because his mother needs a kidney and he wants to give her one and he can't because they stopped doing emergency surgeries. And that seemed to be the main thing he was fussing about. But they were continually trying to grab him so that they could force a needle into him. And they eventually got him and wrestled him down and forced a needle into him. You can the camera doesn't show it, but you can hear him talking about it, about them jabbing him with the needle.
Right.
Now, yeah, this is what is going out into, and remember, like I mentioned, when it comes time for the narrative to turn on us, they reserve the graphic violence and the graphic content for every other group, but when it comes time for us, they'll let us lie dead in the street.
Ooh, yeah. Listen, it's gonna be
film it.
It's us. What?
Right. And this fella that got into it with the people in the hospital was one of us. Okay? He's a lighter-skinned fella, but he's one of us. They will show that. They will show people in the hospital getting wrestled down by physicians and police and security as they get forced into a shot. They will show you that.
As sure as they look like you and me, you are so correct.
Right. That is coming. Quote me on that. When you see it, you'll know where you heard it.
And my question is this. If you see the position that the rest of the world took against the Chinese population, the Chinese citizens, the outcasting and the treatment that's happening with them, can you see what's coming? Look what we go through already. Now, once you get this target on your back that you're an infected population that's going to die fast and can infect everybody else, add that on top of all the stereotypes you wear now.
Nope. I got some stuff. Let me write it down on my sticky note.
Copper go in.
Write it down on my sticky note.
I just say, quote me on that, and I'm like, hold up.
Oh,
wait.
Yeah, I will own that. I will own that statement.
All right.
For better or for worse, I will own that statement.
No, I know.
Because if you start seeing, and it doesn't matter the news outlet, it doesn't matter the social media outlet. If you start seeing videos circulate of people like us that are classified as African American and Negro and Black and all of that, getting into violent we'll call them misunderstandings with authorities and with each other over this stuff, you'll know where you heard it, because they will allow that to circulate.
That's crazy.
Yeah, they will allow that to be seen. The same way as they showed you Mike Brown laying out in the street. You remember that? Remember that week where we had about 3 nationally publicized shootings of young Negro boys by cops? Remember that week in about, what was it, like 2016 or so? They'll show you that.
Live execution.
Kid with a knife in the middle of the street.
Yeah, they're okay with showing you that. And they'll tell you, well, you know, we want to warn you guys, it's going to be graphic content before you see it. Trigger warning. You know, we want to make sure you guys understand that this is going to, but we're going to show it to you anyway. We won't show you a school where young kids have been massacred by in an active shooter incident, an active event. They won't show you that. They won't show you the blood, and they won't show you the cleanup for that. But they'll show you us getting choked down in the street. They'll show you us laid out in the street. They'll show you us on, you know, what was that stuff? That K-12 stuff that was in New York.
Yep.
Where folks is walking around like zombies. They'll show you that. They want you to see that. So that's coming. Count on it.
No.
It's that conditioning to the point to where society, especially in America, that when people see it, they don't even question it. It's the norm. Like, okay, yeah, that's the way it is.
Gabrielle. Is that me?
Is she playing?
Look, you hear what that sounds like, right? Gabrielle, you got to mute type.
Wait, what?
You got to type on mute. What game is that? Because I want it. That's nostalgic. It's something
for real.
It sounds like it's something. Gabrielle.
I thought the key was out.
She said, wait, what? She didn't even.
My bad. I thought I was on mute. I didn't even know. Okay.
My bad. I thought you were somebody else. Dr. King.
Whoever you type, us, the chat, and the person you type, you text all of us at the same time.
I know. Exactly, right?
My bad. To apologize, but I was on mute. I don't know how to stop making this phone do that.
It's in your setting.
I know, and I haven't figured out the setting yet.
I'm about to hit mine back to make sure you wasn't sending like Morse code or something.
Help me.
Smoke signals. What's going on?
I don't know. Smokes. You can see smoke signals. If the wind get to it, it's gonna disappear.
Oh man. But yeah, no. That is accurate, Copper. With them showing us all of us, every last case. It's been there, national news. But yeah, the school shooting, the Vegas shooting, wasn't that a country western concert?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there wouldn't have been a lot of us there. I'm not saying none of us were there. None of us do listen to country music. Like a good country song every now and then, you know. I'm not driving. I went to a Chuck Berry concert in my day. No, I'm lying.
I'm about to say, wait a minute, what? You're older than me.
No, I'm lying. It was a Christmas concert.
That is my birthday?
That is my birthday. No, but yeah, no, this is accurate. And I don't want to get into the hooks and the school events and things like that, and the drills around the corner. But yeah, they don't really be showing the carnage, the aftermath, or any of that for things like that. But we definitely get center stage when it comes to national news. And when did the national news become HBO or an HBO affiliate? I mean, they probably have been this whole time, but this might get graphic. So
yeah, remember HBO.
Viewer discretion advised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But that's programming, though. That's how you know it's programming. Because if it's that graphic, why do you even have it on public? I'm gonna say it again.
Exactly.
Public television. If it's that graphic,
nobody can walk past the TV in McDonald's. Ain't CNN in McDonald's.
Exactly.
Come on,
It
Shane.
should be behind something to where a particular mature audience can only see it. You get what I'm saying? You put that label on it. You put graphic warning, mature audiences only, but it's in the public accessible area. What do you think gonna happen?
That's like
that label
that little,
click me,
I'm
press me right now.
I'm grown.
that's like
I
an
don't want
18
to
and
see
up
it.
link.
I cover my
Are
eyes
you
on
18 and up?
shooting
Yes.
movies. They
No, I'm
shoot.
talking about,
Shoot. No, I'm
just
just
look
saying.
at the trigger. Yeah, the trigger that it is. It's like in life. There's a red button right there, and they tell you before you walk in the room, the sign said, "Don't press the red button." You're curious about the button now. The moment you see that graphic content warning, your subconscious become curious because it's in the public. You get what I'm saying? It's accessible. So why warn you about something and make it accessible? You get what I'm saying?
Right. We know y'all not supposed to watch it, but here you go anyway. Sorry, not sorry. And we talking about now. We talking about a population that's been primed for this. We talking about a population that binge watches stuff like Game of Thrones, that is used to violence, is used to fight comps, that's used to this kind of stuff. Violence for violence sake. Watching videos of people dying out in the street and everybody just got their phones out, trying to get likes. They're used to this. So when this kind of stuff shows up in the news, you're going to have an audience that's extremely receptive to it.
I mean, just look how we got conditioned to watching, witnessing, and recording street fights.
Not just that, even like some of the video games. Like there's a couple of them. My sons were like, "Oh, mom, play," and I was like, "I can't. This thing feel real. It's got me feeling nervous. Like I'm about to get hit in my back. I don't want to play. I don't want to do it."
Entertainment, if you're not cautious, desensitizes you.
Right.
It makes something that's not supposed to be norm. It makes it the norm for you. We live in a society to where children under the age of 10 are playing some of the most violent video games ever.
Yeah.
I remember at one time, forget putting a label on it, you couldn't make it. I mean, come on, think about it.
Yeah, those games are only for the movies.
If it was really about the protection, all these online sites have the ability to tell you what you can and can't upload. And if you try to upload the wrong things, it's rejected it. So how is it possible to even upload some of these videos? They're allowing it. Now you have to ask yourself, why is it allowed? We know that these social platforms work on the pay for click. I don't care who you think you are, how big you are on a social platform. If you're not paying, your content isn't going out there. Anybody who tell you otherwise, I'll point you to the policy of all the social sites. But that's another story.
Okay, so yeah, Copper, I was about to ask a question about that. I believe you're talking about that. Didn't Facebook get in trouble, but didn't get in trouble technically for the policies people agreeing to for showing more negative content to certain people on Facebook and more positive content to other people? See how they reacted during the week.
They dictate who see what. They dictate who see what. Even down to Google. Everybody Google search would be different because it's dictated on, again, like Papa Indio was saying before, the information that you put in on these devices, what you click on, how long you there, what you watch, what channels you on YouTube, and how long you're in them channels and chats. All that's recorded. Now that information is used as a profile, and it dictates what type of material you will be seeing. I mean, the majority of the community can witness this here. Before you got into this information, you wasn't getting mass information on Google and stuff about American Indian stuff. But think about it now, your timeline stays
not at all.
because that's your routine, that's your traffic. So now they make sure all the content that you get majorly deals with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Or they realize the problem is choice. So what do you do when people have free choice? You limit and control the choices. We know it as multiple choice. But do you really have free choice and multiple choice if I already chose the plausible answers for you? You got free choice off of my choice. You get what I'm saying?
Right.
Yeah, you got free choice.
People got to remember. Yeah, people got to remember freedom is also the freedom to completely reject and misuse the rights that you have so they can be taken away. That's why you have to have a certain level of responsibility. We've said this many times. You have to have a certain level of responsibility and a certain level of common sense and intelligence to maintain freedom. Otherwise, it will be stripped from you. And you will not only allow it to be stripped, you will demand that it be stripped, or others will do that of you. And if you prove that you can't handle freedom, trust me, some other group, what you can call it, whether it's the government, whether it's private corporations, whether it's other people, somebody's going to come and take that from you.
You see it happen all the time.
We do it with our children.
I mean, and I'm glad you
come
said
back
that.
late if you want to. Nope.
I'm glad you said that, Gabrielle, because it shows it on the simplest level. It makes it possible for anybody to relate to this, because you've been a child or you have children. So you can understand it that way. That in that situation, you give your children choice, but choices off of what you already picked for them. No different. Which is kind of funny though, because it does go back to participation. Because guess what? When you participate, you had the ability to change all of that now. Okay, it gotta be multiple. It gotta be multiple choice. All right, so moving forward, the multiple choice are questions that deal with us and our life on a daily basis. The choices that we get to pick from are choices that really affect us as individuals and as a community. So again, no matter how bad it looks or how bad it seems it can get, we still have a choice and ability to make a change if we choose to. Or we can sit down, wait, play the scare tactic game, and we know how that's going to work out. I mean, last time I looked in history, they did it like that. My ancestors became, the virus turned them from Indian to Negroes.
They disappeared and the doppelgangers reappeared.
Just saying that, I think I am scared of COVID-19. I don't know what I'm gonna wake up and be all.
You ain't like
right.
Go to sleep American Indian and wake up a blank.
Right. Because if you haven't gotten sick from it, who knows where this is going to go? Who knows what we're going to be seen as once this is done? Because you have far beyond our demographic of the population, you have a bunch of people that are willing to go along with whatever the government or private corporations decree that happens to us. Again, you've got certain former CEOs of tech companies posing as authorities in medicine that are going to tell you where you can go and where you can't go based on this. So if they can allow people to get away with doing that, what else could they allow with doing to you in your classification? Do you see why they were trying to get people to make sure they filled the census out? My congressman called me and was like, hey, y'all got to do this. Y'all in the middle of us responding to this thing, y'all better make sure you're in. Make sure you're documented, because who knows what's coming. I can't tell you I know exactly what they're gonna dole out as far as any reclassification or anything like that. But who knows at this point? Because right now this is a jubilee for anyone in authority. This is a jubilee. Companies that make our food, that make our products that we have to buy, essential products at the grocery store. Pay attention to some of those prices if you get out to go to the grocery store anytime soon. Look at how much more things cost now. That's not by accident.
I agree with you, because my normal list of things, like my wheat breads and whole grain breads, stuff like that, stuff that people weren't eating before, even something as simple as Brussels sprouts and asparagus, the prices of them on them have gone up. Like, this is my normal stuff. What are y'all doing? I know. I agree.
What gets me is the shortage on supplies in stores, but there's not a shortage on manufacturing of the supplies.
Nope. Because things are still getting made. They're just not making their way to you where you can see them available.
Right, and
that shortage.
Yep. That's a fourth shortage. Distribution has purposely been slowed down purposely.
Right.
And then you incite a panic to make people rush out to the stores to buy what's in there.
Right. Basically, you artificially.
They don't even have to liquidate.
Yeah. You boost demand because now everybody's in a panic and you've got short supply. Not that they don't exist. It's just not available for people to get. So you can say, hey, I mean, good luck finding toilet paper. I mean, we got a little bit. If you want to pay a premium for it, But this is a jubilee for everybody, for large corporations, for the government especially, because how do you have an 800, I forgot how many pages this law is. I have a copy of the CARES Act, and it's well over 800 pages. Let me see if I can find it here.
Oh,
I'm looking while I'm talking, but
you're pulling that 800 page thing again.
It's
the big book.
Yeah, this is the Stimulus Act of 2008 all over again.
Yes, sir. That's what it sounds like to me.
All over again. Yeah, this is very similar, and this was all. You can tell it was all planned, because when did they have time to do this? When did they have time to write 800 some odd pages of now law code?
Especially
it was already there.
Especially when all these years the media have been telling us ain't nothing going on because they trying to impeach the president and they fighting and ain't nobody working. Obviously, 800 pages, somebody had to be working. Somebody was working.
New under the sun. They said Chromebook Chrome in 2 days.
Everybody was watching that trial. Right. Everybody was watching the circus. They were behind the scenes crafting legislation. Like you said, that's 800 pages. You didn't do that in an overnight setting in Congress. No. I know better than that. 800 pages? We ain't say words, pages. And can somebody tell me why toilet paper? Why do a freeze on toilet paper?
Because that's one of those amenities that's been assumed and taken for granted. The act, the CARES Act, is 880 pages, by the way. That's one of those things that we, especially in urban areas, take completely for granted. We assume there'll always be toilet paper. We assume that we'll always have the ability to go to the restroom and clean ourselves. And when some of those basic things are not attainable, when they're not available to us, and we're on how many days of lockdown at this point? Most of us have been on some form of lockdown for at least a month at this point, at least. So if you're stuck in the house, you're out of toilet paper, there's none anywhere in sight, what are you doing? It should be apparent now that to some degree, even if the origin of this crisis was not that, to some degree, this has become about social engineering. This has become about psychological trauma. We are being traumatized. How many memes have you all seen over the last month talking about how we're either going to leave out of this quarantine, the self-imposed quarantine, either better cooks or alcoholics?
Mm.
Why is alcoholic beverage control seen as an essential business?
Thank you. I was asking the same thing. Like, why are the ABC stores, the wine, the places? Because, and this is just me, I know that for a hurricane, for natural disasters, like if there's a hurricane, flood, tornado, storm or whatever, it is illegal. No convenience store, no ABC store, no package store, no gas station, nobody. You cannot sell liquor, you cannot sell beer or wine. How come? And I would look at this as a type of disaster or a type of event, because why would that still be sold? Alcohol intensifies the situation.
Say it again. Alcohol does what, Gabrielle? You answered your question. Alcohol does what?
It intensifies the situation.
So now you force people closer and tighter together in enclosed spaces. I mean, again, look at the neighborhoods that have the majority of the liquor stores on the corner. Mm-hmm. Look at the design of the houses in there. Look at the population of how many people live in these houses. Now you put that on top of bills still have to be paid. There ain't no jobs, ain't too many jobs still open. Stress, anxiety, all that start kicking in. In neighborhoods that already have been stripping of resources. Mm-hmm. It's a catalyst for something to go down.
Exactly. And all they're doing right now is buying you a little more time by medicating that stress. So what do you have? You have social media, you got your phones, okay? While the lights are still on, while you can still afford to pay the rent and the power bill for now, you can binge watch stuff, Netflix, Hulu, and Disney Plus, and so forth. You got all the entertainment you could ever want. The entertainment that most people have been sitting back and consuming anyway. You got the internet. You got all the sleazy stuff that goes on the internet as well. So you got plenty of stuff that people can use to placate themselves and medicate themselves. You got alcohol, regardless of whether or not people go to the store, they're going to go to the ABC store, if nothing else. So people have access to all the vices that will keep them calm for a while. But what happens when the time comes and people have had enough and people were no longer willing to stay indoors? People are no longer willing to not gather in public places. Because it's going to happen at some point. At some point, people are going to say, I'm fed up, I'm done. Then what? Then the chaos ensues. Now, I don't know how many people have seen any of the leaked footage that has come from China early on with this in January. However, I will say that one thing that was pretty prevalent in the footage that people in China were trying to get out to the public was crackdowns. People being stopped at checkpoints that weren't wearing a mask. People that weren't observing quarantine and staying in their homes. And there were beatdowns. And you saw people falling out in the street, twitching and stuff. It was very graphic stuff. And I don't know to what degree, but I know to some degree you're going to see some of the same stuff if this goes on long enough. If we stay quarantined like this for too much longer, and there's not some kind of stipend given to us, remember the universal basic income that Mr. Yang was touting, and Mr. Zuckerberg was touting from Facebook, universal basic income. We're stuck in our homes. We can't work. How do we get the bills paid?
Universal
How do we
income.
continue to function?
Universal income.
So now we got a thing. Now we got a thing that we otherwise wouldn't bother with, that we're actually considering as legitimate now. Imagine that.
They got to vote right now. Think about it. To show you how they maneuver the road, but we travel down it. If they was to make that suggestion right now, because of the lack of work and lack of funds to pay jobs, how many people will willingly vote on that without even reading the small print? Let's keep this 100.
Right. And speaking of voting, the HR 748, the CARES Act, the one that ended up getting signed into law, that was done on a verbal vote. That was not done how laws are normally voted on and passed through Congress. That was done remotely, and it was done by people. It's literally phoning it in. And that was a Congressman Massey. I want to say from Kentucky. I forgot what state he's in, but nevertheless, he was saying, "Hey, wait a minute. Why don't we have any of these members of Congress on record for voting for this? If this is such a good deal for America, why does no one want to have their name associated with it?" They just deemed right. And of course, both parties threw him under the bus and said, "Hey, get this guy out of here. We need to get this passed." And I get it, but at the same time, the fundamental principle still stands. If you're gonna vote on a measure that's supposed to help the country, why is everybody withdrawing from being on record as voting for this thing if it's such a good deal for the people? Again, I'm not going to weigh in on the merit of the law itself. There's a principle that seems fundamentally wrong with this, because you don't write 880 pages of code. And this is all, if you read the text of this act, it is all in legalese. All of it, the entirety of it is in legalese. This did not get written in three or 4 hours. This took months, if not years, to put together. And yet, somehow we're supposed to think that the Congress got together and they hashed this out, and they got the fine print and all of this stuff done, and everybody unanimously decided that it should work, that it needs to pass and go to the president to sign. They all, on a consensus, said, "Yeah, let's move this to the White House so they can sign it." I challenge anybody here to find me a congressman that has read the entirety of this act. I've only read maybe about 20 pages of it myself. I dare anybody to come up with proof that a sitting member of Congress has read this and all the details therein, that could tell you what this act does without having a staffer write it down for them. That's why I say we get the government that we deserve, that we ask for, not the government we need. But if we don't ask for the government that we should have, we will never get it.
Facts.
Big facts.
It's time for individuals to play their part. It's time to put the communities back together again. And again, what's going on with this COVID thing is a perfect situation for you to take the time to put things in order if you haven't got them in order. it's a chance to take time out, especially the majority of people who are home. Instead of depending on your grocery stores, grow what you can grow, produce for yourself. So that way, whatever is coming doesn't have a major effect on your daily living. But if your whole life is dependent on what somebody else has to give you access to, you got a lot more things to worry about than COVID-19 then.
That's right. And as we've been saying on the program, we have tools that we can use that are already here, that we don't need to have the president sign. It already exists, that they all know about, that can help us avoid a lot of what's coming. But it's up to us to actually take advantage of those things. It is up to us to stop sitting at home and passively letting these things happen to us and begin taking charge of our own lives. You don't let somebody apply for a job for you, do you? If you decide you need to get a job, you go apply for that job yourself. You don't wait for somebody else to just give you a good job. So why would you wait for someone else to fix the government for you? Why would you wait for someone else to fix your food supply? Why would you wait for someone else to fix the compensation you get, not just from your job, but the safety net that you need when bad things happen? Why would you wait for other people to decide that? It's time. This is as good a time as any for us to begin taking charge of ourselves, our families, and our community. Because it is apparent that no one else is thinking about that on our behalf. And no one else is going to come in and fix this for us. And if they do, even if they claim to do so, is it really going to be fixing it for our interests or someone else's? These are things we got to think about. And these are things we got to start getting together and acting on. This is not going to be a violent revolution. The people locking everything down aren't doing it violently, at least not yet. This doesn't have to be like that. We already got tools. We already got the things that we need to make things better for ourselves, regardless of what the rest of the country and what the rest of the world is doing. Most of us are smart enough to be able to tell when we're being lied to. Even if we don't necessarily know what the truth is, we can tell when someone's deceiving us or just giving us information just because. So if we find that the institutions around us are doing that, we need to cut our dependency on said institutions. And this isn't that you go and try to say that you're not under the government, you're not a citizen and this and that. No. But you can take steps, again, right now that are in the law codes for you to be able to be as self-sufficient as possible. So when they tell you don't go to the grocery store, it's not going to ruin your life. It's not going to make you so desperate that you got to go out and rob people, like what we've been seeing in New York, looting, while everybody's social distance and quarantined. If you don't need the infrastructure of these corporations, you don't need to do that. You can go and have your own reserve of food. You can go and have your own reserve of money or commodities or whatever you need to get through that period. We already have it.
And you mentioned something, citizen. And it's funny to me that a lot of people are having this discussion and debate over U.S. citizen and not a U.S. citizen. But have anybody ever took the time out and actually put it all on the table and weighed it out? Really? It's because I'm a U.S. citizen, I have the right and access to start my own housing authority. It's because I'm a U.S. citizen. I can sponsor a nonprofit organization under the name of American Indian to service the communities. It's because of your U.S. citizenship that we have the ability to produce our own. I mean, people talk all this rhetoric, but have these same individuals ever been any place outside of the country when something go down? Because I promise you, if you do, you're going to cling on to that U.S. citizenship, because that embassy going to make sure that your behind get back home in one piece. When everybody else in the world is breaking their neck to become a U.S. citizen, you got people telling you to give up yours. What's wrong with that?
Yep.
You don't hear about mass populations of people trying to be no other citizen of no foreign nations, but you hear all these foreign nations trying to come here to be citizens. And for those who don't know, all U.S. citizens are nationals. And all U.S. nationals have allegiance to the United States. Stop it. Again,
Was that necessary? Did you have to do that?
Probably not, but it feels good though.
It's almost Friday.
But really, and I didn't even say that as a shot. I say that because I honestly do care about my brothers and sisters. Is that for too long, bits and pieces of misinformation has been combined and thrown as correct, but it's not. It's borrowed information, bits and pieces of legal things that belong to other categories. And right now, doing all this paperwork and jamming up stuff, I advise you not to do it, because before, you had the ability that so many people and so many court cases was going on and some of this stuff slipped through. Last I checked, they ain't processing too much stuff. So for your best interest, it's best to sit down and see what you can do physically to change your situations. Meaning, if you got to plant a garden, plant a garden. If you live in an area where you can have wells and stuff, start looking into technologies and the free resources that will allow you to do that. Instead of sitting back complaining about a system that you have all the access to change, but you rather point fingers and get up and do something. I mean, how many of us have elders in our communities? But how many people making sure that they are right? Making sure that they had the supplies and the food and stuff that they need to make it through this in the community. If anything, this should be the time that we become a tighter community. Because the writing's on the wall if we don't.
That's a fact.
When you look at everybody else that's broken up into these created races and nationalities, we all know they're man-made. But when you look at these man-made categories, it's kind of funny that every other category is producing. Our category is full of consumers. So when it really hit the fan, when it really hits the fan, brothers and sisters, it's obvious who's on the outside looking in. We don't produce anything. So if everybody else is producing and we're consuming, we will be dependent on the rest of the world to take care of us.
That's right.
Can't spell it out for you any more than that. If we don't do it, we will be dependent on the rest of the world. The same people that these same so-called leaders and speakers and teachers are banging against will be the same people that you have to go to get your food. When you can take the time now to start working on with like-minded individuals in your community and even expand it. how we do it here, how we speak online. It's more than just online. It's putting together this plan so what's grown in my community that's not grown in this community, we can move it back and forth. Even down to exchanging seeds and stuff if we have to. Because if we don't do it, who else is? Talk is good, but we beyond that. The talk died out in the 60s. King showed you that. It's about action, but physical action. Not the type of action you go out there emotional and blind, no. Plan, strategy. Like
we
you
all,
say,
we all.
go ahead. I'm sorry. No, I'm sorry. I was gonna.
Oh, I was just gonna say we all to back bones up on this. We all hear the government refer to what's going on as warfare. There are no shots being fired. There are no bombs and no mortars, no tanks, no drones. The nature of warfare has changed. The nature of the warfare that the government is prosecuting has changed. And we have to not only understand that, but be adaptive. And we have to understand as well that the nature of what we are facing, we should probably consider looking at as a war. In the sense that we've got a problem that is not only not going to go away, but is going to get worse until we do something about it. So the warfare that I'm referring to is the war that's in our communities. Whether it's a matter of reaching people to get them to see what's going on around them, or getting brother and cousin to stop killing one another. We have to look at all of this as warfare, and we need to treat it as such. This is not a time to be sitting around getting high all the time, binge watching stuff and just being distracted. That's medication. And if you like, that's stuff that people do in times of peace. This is war. And when the Indian has always been presented with war, we've always stepped up to the challenge. This is why they name so many military instruments that are used around the world in actual hot warfare after your ancestors. Because they knew these were the toughest, the baddest warriors out there. Period. They're talking about you. And if you still see yourself as that, you need to understand that we are still at war. Except this time we don't need to go and attack anybody physically. We don't need to go and write up a bunch of paperwork and actually act like we're outside the United States while we still use the same fiat currency of the United States to do business, to make money off of people. We don't need to be doing that. We need to fix our communities, because that's the collateral damage from this war, is our communities. And if you love your family, if you love your people, your tribe, your community, you will take this war seriously. And don't take my word for it. Don't take our word for it. Look around you, because it's already here. This isn't a war that's fought halfway around the world. This isn't something that you're going to send your kids off, or you can see other people, other families sending their kids off to. This is something that the politicians and the corporate bigwigs are definitely not going to put their children into, or themselves. They brought this to you. And if you honor your ancestors, if you honor your community and your children, you will take this seriously and you will pay attention. I use the mic, by the way. I don't mean to scare nobody off.
Nope.
I mean, but what he said is truthful. It is a war. Yeah. And the war isn't the conventional one that you see in movies and television. And if we have any intentions on moving forward as a people and bringing back our culture and our history to the forefront, then we got to protect our communities, because that is ground zero. Because again, if we're too busy caught up in this hamster wheel of this American life, who's protecting the children? And not just physically, mentally. Who's protecting their minds from these subliminal messages that damage us? If they can harm us, then what is it doing to the children?
Facts.
You know, can y'all hear me?
Yep, come on.
So I had this thought earlier this rising, real early. For an hour, I thought it was 2:30 and 2:38, and it was actually 3:38. But so I had this thought. Epiphany was talking to me, and I had this thought about myself that I am the result of the confusion that my parents, my mother and father and grandfather and grandmother, I am the lost result of what happened to them. If that makes sense. And I say that because we're pretty much picking up the pieces, putting back together or coming back together and discussing and sharing and doing all these things of things that were separated, broken, misunderstood or confused. And I equated to like, dang, that's what I'm doing. I'm picking up the pieces of all the mess that was put before me. Does that make sense? No?
Yeah, I get it. I mean, again, what's the sense in doing all this digging through genealogy, finding out who you descend from, if in the end, you're not willing to stand up and protect it for the next generation? How can we live through the conditions of watching our neighborhoods fall apart and knowing that we have others to follow behind us and not willing to sacrifice 5 minutes of our time to make it better? Again, if we have intentions on bringing back our true culture and identities, then we must be willing to pick up this fight. We must be willing to protect the legacy of our ancestors, which is our communities. Because in our communities, our ancestors made sure when we were children that we were protected, that everything we needed that they provided, that they didn't have to go out in the world and become prey to the system just to get by. That because of the commitment that we had in communities, certain things did not play out. And look at it this way. The majority of us like-minded brothers and sisters who are here today, we are here because of the morals, because our ancestors took the time to instill that in us. And true indeed, we may waver, fall off track because we're human. But it's that part that they put in us that allows us to come back and to know this is our responsibility. How can we keep hollering that we are great people and who we are and what we have done if we're not willing to do it now for our people, for the less fortunate of our people, for the ones who can't defend themselves, who can't speak? If we're not willing to do it for them, we have no business even mentioning American Indian brothers and sisters. How dare we even speak about our ancestors when we have brothers and sisters who need us now? Regardless if they saying there's a COVID-19, what it take to call? What it take to text? What it take to mail something? We did this to ourselves, and we must stop it. Yes, they had their hands in the destruction of our communities, but we helped by abandoning them. We helped by turning our back on our culture to adopt a European lifestyle, a clubbing, balling, flashy, I'm the man, I'm hot. Let's keep this 100. Because in Indian culture,
Mic check.
I can hear. Did the sound cut out?
Yeah.
Sorry about that. Call came in the middle of me speaking. Mic check 1 2.
1 2 1 2. Loud and clear.
Yeah, again, the reason why we are aware of this information, and when I say we, I mean all those who are aware of who you are and where you come from, is because we are the ones who are supposed to pick up this responsibility. There's a reason why we know. There's a reason why we are here. We are the ones chosen to pick up this mantle and move it forward. Now, in the end, it's your choice. You have the right to choose what you want to do. And I'm the type of person, I don't care. If a person chooses something, I don't have to like it. I'm going to respect it because that's their right to choose. All I say is this. Remember, in the end, we all will be judged on what we chose. So if you do have an opportunity, there's resources and programs that we can access right now while we're talking, right now while we're talking, to fix your community. And you use your right to choose not to, you have to answer for that. Again, these things exist. So if you're not taking the time out to apply this information to these resources that exist, who answers for that in the end? When your whole family whole future could have been changed for positive just by you applying yourself now, and you chose not to. That whole family line is on who? When you see that your community is falling apart and is struggling, and you know there's programs that members of your community can access to stop the hurt, to fix it, and you remain silent or you choose not to even investigate, remember, in the end, that's on you. We have to stop playing these childish games. We want to be treated like mages. We want to be treated like adults, no longer minors. We got to act like it. Adulthood isn't something that just falls on you. Adulthood comes when you are aware of your choices, your responsibility, and you embrace it. You don't make excuses.
That's right.
When have our culture became cool to make excuses for why things are? When have it became cool for us to accept substandards? But it's kind of funny. When it comes to Nikes that we don't own, we ain't going substandard there. We don't do it with the TVs, cars, jewelry. We brag about how pristine that stuff is, the tag and the label and the brand on that. The same people that you say you hate brag on their stuff. Dying to take your hard-earned dollars and give it back to the people you say you hate the most. When you can take that same wastefulness and reinvest it in your community, in yourself. Because again, if you don't believe in you enough to invest in you, how can you convince me? If you can't convince yourself. Again, it's time to get serious. It's time to stop using these platforms for basic entertainment, likes and drama. It's time for us to use this in our best interest, not the powers to be, to sit here and entertain and talk reckless and foolish. It's time to start using these devices, to start strategizing, to start conversating with members of our community and other communities. It's time for like minds to come together, to sit down at the table, willing to put your personal beliefs aside, your spirituality, religion, your personal taste in music and food. We put that aside and we fix the communities. And once our children and their children and their children are safe, if we choose to, we can sit down at the table and discuss these petty issues. But if we don't address what's killing all of us, ain't none of us gonna be here to argue about this pettiness. Aboriginal, indigenous, it doesn't matter. So what if we all adapted Aboriginal right now? Okay, that's our new name. Because we picked that name, did that take away the pain in our neighborhoods? Did that take away the pain from the single mothers, the single fathers, the orphans, the elderly? You can pick any title you want. Does that title take away the pain and the struggle? Why are we so concerned with titles instead of doing the work? Sound like excuses. You want accolades without the action. Excuses. We need to spend more time in our communities doing real work than sitting here with the drama. And this goes to any and everybody. I don't care how you feel. The truth is meant to hurt. So let it burn. If you entertaining the drama, you are the major part of the problem. And I don't care if you don't like it. Because if it didn't have entertainment, if it didn't have people flocking to it, it dies off. We keep the distractions going on and had the audacity to complain about what our children got to face. Really? You bringing the poison into your house. You're allowing the poison in your mind. You're allowing the poison to represent you. Then you want to complain about your conditions. What does that make sense? No one can do it for you. No one on this panel can do it for you. There's not one person in the Tontonist Assembly can do it for you. You got to do it for yourself. But what our promise is, if you're trying to do that for your community, trying to better your situations, trying to put your best foot forward and give it your best that you can give to your community, to your legacy, then the doors here are always open. We will always bring that information. We will always reach out to the powers that be that the others are scared to even have a conversation with. Because when it comes to our people, I shall fear no man when it comes to our people. How you say you love us, but you hide behind icons? How you love us and your local leaders don't even know you? I know your local leader better than you. But you love us. You represent us. And when are we gonna stop being so naive to let any and everybody just because they look like us say they represent us? If that's the fact, y'all need to stop complaining about Jesse and Al Sharpton, because it's the same thing. Somebody self-appointed themselves your representative and you shut your mouth. So take your medicine. And if you don't like it, then use your God-given right to speak to say something and do something. If you see wrong, speak about it. If you can fix it, fix it. We can sit here, argue with the Moors, Christians, all this stuff all day about information. But how many of you ever looked up in your local neighborhood that you can use a program for free to fix your conditions? You know more about somebody else that's fictional than you know about your real community. Didn't our brother Original Tiller come on here and let brothers and sisters know? Check out your land banks. The brother bought 2 lots for $100. And people crying, telling him it can't be done. 2 lots for $100. Turned them into community farms. So convince this brother and his community that it doesn't work. Again, I say this because I truly care. We have to do better as a community. All of us. I can do better. We can do better. We must. How are our children our future when we ain't giving them nothing but death and decay? Violence. When? When enough is enough? When are we gonna have a conversation that we need to have with each other? Forget the rest of the world. I'm talking about us right now. When are we gonna be able to have honest conversations with ourselves and put our emotions aside? That some of these things that we condone, that we cheer, are the main reasons why we're in this condition. It's not hard to see. It's not hard to see. Stop blaming outside entities for your issues. Because it didn't start with the outside entities. It started with us doing this to each other. And one half of our family invited friends in. And we got jumped. We must fix this. You really think somebody invaded the country with no military they bought and enslaved the whole country without help? No. Indians did this. And if you're telling yourself something else, you're very naive. Show me when you go to somebody's house, just you, and whoop everybody in the house. Y'all better get away from them Hollywood movies. This ain't no Steven Seagal. We did this to ourselves. And it's going to continue to happen until we decide enough is enough. Nobody put the gun to our head to tell us to turn off. We chose to. Don't get me wrong, it was suggested. Yes, it was suggested, but we chose to listen. We chose to perpetrate it. How many of us portrayed the image of the urban gangster because it was the cool thing to do? I mean, let's have this conversation. How many of us portrayed that? Now ask yourself, how many youngins seen that image and emulate what they seen you do? How many of us emulated the lifestyles of the music, of the culture? And how many of our younger siblings and youngins seen us do it? So ask yourself as an individual in your individual life, how much of this did you pass on to the next generations? Because we all played a part in this. We are all guilty. Anybody who's telling you that they're not, I'll let you figure the rest out. So again, if you're here for real solutions or real change, you must start with yourself and where you're at. Research the programs USDA, HUD, FHA, microloans, US.gov. Research what programs are in your area. But just 2-3 days ago, we did Garment America, a program designed for all it takes is 4 women to enter into this. They helped them with financial classes, helped them build up their business, set up their account, and get microloans towards their business. And it doesn't stop there. They continue to get more help as long as they're enrolled in the program. How many of us have sisters out there that are into business that can benefit from this? And this is just one program that I know that many people probably first time ever hearing about it, but it exists. The reason why a lot of times no one answers the cries of our community, because the solution has been there before we started crying about it. We just don't use it. You don't like the United Way? Start your own. You don't like the Red Cross? Start your own in your community. We get out of this by working and building. Stagnation and pointing the fingers is just a guaranteed death. It's the only thing that's guaranteed. We all know that we have an expiration date and it's real. So why are we gonna keep playing around like tomorrow is promised to any one of us? Why? Why we can't take action now? Before it's too late. And say I can't speak for nobody else and no one else's community. I know what we gonna do here. What we're gonna continue to keep doing. I mean, if there's nothing else anyone wants to interject in it, we can go ahead and let the relatives get on this good, beautiful for Thursday, Free Friday. Uh-oh. Let me get.
I think.
Oh, we'll just let's say Carpendio.
No, I just said I don't have anything else. I think we can go ahead and roll out.
All right, Gabrielle, you bought the steamroller today? Because yesterday you had the sledgehammer.
I just needed somebody else to speak, so I appreciate you, Copper. Thank you for speaking after.
No, I wasn't gonna say nothing.
I don't. Yeah, I don't. No.
What is? Ain't
I think your voice.
Not gonna be able to do it.
Copper's voice is heavy enough to handle that weight, and I'm not there yet. I'm. Okay, salivations. Continue on your genealogical journey. It is important to know who you are so that no one can tell you who you are. Pass that knowing and that information. Pass it along to your children, to your family, to your friends. So that they know who they are, so that no one can tell them who they are. Period. Genealogy is important. Genealogy, it definitely broadens perspective, gives a better understanding, a better knowing. And as you've said so many times, Bones, knowing the mistakes that we made in our past will help us to make better decisions going forward. So, continue doing your genealogy. It is important. Period. Okay, well, nobody say do your genealogy. It's important. We need to know. You need to know. So, Census Day was April 1st. However, it doesn't mean that you can't still do the census. You still got time. You can go online. The census doesn't take long. Make yourself count so that you can count. Period. Census affects funding, affects programs. And with everything going on now, you got to know that participating in doing the census or not participating in doing the census will have a direct effect and direct impact on our communities. So if we participate, then we can expect to see funding and programs and resources. If we don't participate, we shouldn't expect any of that. Just saying. So and again, Saturday, the call, got to discuss some things. So you can explain it better, Bones. My bad. But participate, do the census, make yourself count so that you can count. Period. ACS census is still happening along with the decennial 10-year census. So because it is addresses that are selected, not people, addresses that are selected. If you receive an ACS census, fill it out, because you are a representation, a representative for not only your neighbors, for your community. The ACS census has way more questions than the decennial census, way more questions. And those things matter. Those programs matter. Those fundings matter. Those services matter. Just saying, participate in them. It helps. So with that being said, peace to the panel, peace to the chat, peace to the silent majority. Shout out to you, Double Cousin, for these wise words. Appreciate you.
Watch your toes, Gabrielle, behind the wheel of the steamroller.
Do what? Do what now?
He said, do what now?
Look, hey, nah. You said steamroller, right? You seen Who Framed Roger Rabbit, right?
Right.
Just saying.
Okay. Again, shout out to you, Double Cousin. Appreciate you. I appreciate your wisdom.
Ain't nobody doing nothing.
Okay. Don't base your decisions on the advice of those who don't have to deal with your results or deal with the results. A mistake repeated more than once is a decision.
Oh, watch out. I think that took a thigh.
All right. Let me go to, okay. Excuses. You never realize what a minute is until you work.
No.
Man down.
Excuses. No matter how slow you go, you are still lapping everyone on the couch.
Oh, don't even call it
one more time. One more time.
Excuses. No matter how slow you go, you are still lapping everyone on the couch.
I see somebody bought the coroner with him, huh?
Excuses. That awkward moment when you try to get over on someone and can't.
Ouches.
Excuses. People who don't have the willingness to break bad habits have a lot of excuses and they talk like victims.
I done heard a couple of them before.
Excuses. If cauliflower.
I'm a victim. I'm a victim, brother. I'm a victim. 600 years of oppression. Stop saying that.
Okay, excuses. If cauliflower can somehow be good on pizza, you can do anything. Excuses. This is a short story about 4 people named everybody, somebody, anybody, and nobody. There was an important job to be done, and everybody was sure that somebody would do it. Anybody could have done it, but nobody did it. Somebody got angry about that because it was everybody's job. Everybody thought anybody could do it, but nobody realized that everybody wouldn't do it. It ended up that everybody blamed somebody when nobody did what anybody could have done. Excuses.
It's all y'all fault.
Excuses. If you keep asking others to give you the benefit of the doubt, they'll eventually start to doubt your benefit. Be careful. Excuses. Never try to mess up someone else's life with lies when yours can be destroyed with the truth. The most dangerous liars are those who convince you that they are telling the truth.
Dangerous.
I couldn't do my proposal on my computer because my computer has a virus, and so do my pencils and pens.
There's paper out there for you.
Excuses. I couldn't do my proposal today because ... I couldn't get there on time today because ... I couldn't build the house today because ... I couldn't start the school today because ... I couldn't get funding today because ... How many years in a row does that make?
So we're gonna call that song Ellipsis. Ellipses.
I just want to know, is that the hook or the verse?
Well, we're gonna figure it out. We're gonna figure it out.
I'm down with the ... I don't do ... All right, now if I hear that tomorrow, now I want 2%. 2%.
Oh, exactly.
In truth, one lie can make everything you've ever said or will say questionable. A lie runs until it's overtaken by truth. Be careful who you pretend to be. You might forget who you are.
About them caricatures online.
The only people who get mad at you for telling the truth are those who live a lie. Some people are not really adults at all. They are tall children holding a phone, having a conversation they don't even understand.
Ooh.
When you lose excuses, you find results. When you have 40 million reasons for failure and not a single excuse. And if you could be put in detention for poor life decisions, would you be there? And lastly, unsuccessful people make decisions based on their current situations. Successful people make decisions based on where they want to be.
Forget the steamroller. You brought a whole construction team in here today.
Oh, wait. Lastly, nope, I lied. Okay, I do apologize. Lastly, if I or we were really agents, I or we would make your life a living HE double hockey stick. But instead, I or we would just sit back and watch you do it to yourself.
Reality.
That's it. Peace to the panel, peace to the chat, peace to the silent majority.
No problemo. Just remain silent for a minute. So, you know, when you said it, pictures and thoughts came to my mind. So, what you got for no sell act?
What?
Unless
Today?
you want to, after Copper.
No. Look, my question is Copper still on the line?
Yeah, that's why I was asking.
Oh, yeah. No, I was just making sure. I shouldn't be saying this. I'm just saying, attentionassembly@gmail.com. Peace, y'all. See you tomorrow. Oh, definitely remember that we will be having a very, very important meeting on Saturday, as we do every Saturday, but this one is very specifically important in terms of the census and genealogy. Peace, y'all.
All righty. Flow yours, Coffee Indio.
I didn't put that mic up to your mouth and make you spit it. Might as well. Don't set me up. Appreciate you, Copper.
All right. I appreciate the opportunity. I have been away trying to take care of things. As you all know, last time I was on here was very different from the situation we're in now, and I've had to go and try to make sure that things were okay for my family and friends and in the community. So I've been involved in town hall meetings and talking to representatives and looking at the law, as I mentioned earlier, and some of the other things that have been coming forth. But I wanted to remark on something that Ms. Gabby said about the census and being involved. You've heard me say a few times on this platform that we can't remain silent when things are going on, because we end up getting included whether we want to or not. And if we don't take an active voice in that, we tend to become passengers in our own car against our own will, if you will. So that is of paramount importance. And I will also stress, having spoken with the congressman in my district, that as the things are going on around us, part of what is determining the amount, I know a lot of you have heard about the checks that are coming from the CARES Act to each individual man, woman, and child citizens in the nation. Part of how that number was reached, the $1,200 per adult, $500 for children, was reached because of the census data from 2010. And so every individual that's not counted, this is another statement I will own. Every individual that is not counted on the census will impact, for better or for worse, how much the government allocates for you. It does not matter what, in this sense at least, it does not matter what race you feel you should express that you are. It does not matter what your political affiliation is. In this case, when it comes down to it, and the government is trying to figure out how to take care of its citizens, it needs that information. You're going to get added to that information whether you like it or not, whether you think you're going to or not. But it's much better that you have control over your own acknowledgement of you and your family and your community. Because remember, a lot of us that have come here doing genealogy have depended pretty heavily on census data. We've had relatives that we did not know existed through census data. And if anything like what happened to us before ever happens again, that will be one of the few ways that our descendants will be able to find us. This should be taken seriously. And to what Bone said a bit earlier, the time is now to make sure that we not only make sure our record keeping is appropriate, but that we also actively work and actively fight this war that we're in. We have to work at this. This is not something that we can do passively from our couches and chairs and on our cell phones and on social media. This is something we have to get out when we're allowed to. That is, when we get out and do for our communities. And sometimes it's not actually going to be in front of people face to face. Sometimes you can't do that. We can adapt. We've always adapted, and we should do so now, but you keep the fight up. Connect with your relatives. Talk to your elders. Make sure they have the things they need. Don't lose touch with your people. Because you'll find, as we found before, the American Indian without his tribe is a miscellany. Make sure your tribe comes first, and that's your family, that's your community. Among the people who are logistically members of your tribe. Because that's what our tribes were before other people came here and took the land that we were on. Our tribes were our communities and our families. So I'll leave you all with that, and I'll yield the mic. Thank you all, and have a blessed day.
All right. Once again, thank Gabrielle, No Sellout, and Copper Indio for the work they put in on the Rising Show and making it what it is consistently. Also would like to thank the active chat and the silent majority. Because again, it takes all of us coming together to make this possible. And coming together. We have been doing that now for going on a year and a half on this particular platform, from the creation to now, and all the different, ups and downs we've been through. But the one thing that we should not let go in vain is the times that we took together in conversations, doing genealogy, learning each other's ups and downs. That is community. And that even though we get together in our meetings or on these platforms, this information that we go over, that we present to each other, is meant for us to go back to our physical communities and inform as many as possible. To give us a chance to build in the communities that we need. To give us a chance to educate the next generation. To give us the government that we need. But again, none of this is possible if we don't participate. If we refuse to do the census to even give future generations the chance to even know who we are. How can you argue about pride and self and you're not even willing to record the records of yourself for your own family's purposes? You're allowing outsiders to tell your future family members who you are, instead of you just doing it now for yourself. Like we said before, you can fill out the census, get it notarized, and keep that copy in the file cabinet with the rest of your genealogy records. Because if you're doing genealogy, the one thing you need the physical records. Even though you do it digitally, you're printing everything out physically and you have it in the file. This is something that we can implement to make sure what happened to us and our ancestors don't ever happen again. Because if it does, history is going to judge us. Because we had the opportunity to do something. And doing something is always better than doing nothing. So my brothers and sisters, continue to work in your neighborhoods. Don't let no one tell you what programs that you can't access to bring about change. Keep talking to the members of your community to inform them on the importance of the census, the importance of rebuilding your community, the importance of having businesses in the community, but not just in the community, that the owners of the same businesses are members of the same community. True and deep behind us is a trail of misidentities, misinformation, created cultures that was given to us. But again, right now, we have the opportunity to change all of that and do it for ourselves. So until we link up to the next Rising Show, remember we love you, and peace.
Peace, everybody.
Gabrielle, any more violence? Nope. Peace, y'all.
Oh wait, can you hear me?
Nope, we can't. Peace, y'all.
What you got? The wrecking ball real quick before we go off air? Let me know.
Okay,
Lord
okay, yeah,
help
real
us.
quick.
You better know how to duck.
Lay low.
Making a big life change is scary. But you know what's scarier? Regret. Even a correct decision is wrong when it was taken too late. And the next time you want to decide something, flip a coin, because you won't know what you want until you're hoping that the coin lands on heads or tails.
Congratulations.
And questions to the chat. Yeah, a lot of the programs and government offices are still doing the work online.
Don't forget about Saturday.
And like that, we go.
Warning, warning, warning. Hard hats, pickaxe, shovels, boots required.